Hi there. Just a little thought about attachment theory. Attachment theory is really, really important when we're thinking about trauma, when we're thinking about resilience, when we're thinking about how to help a child or a young person recover from trauma. We need to be really mindful of what attachment experience they've had, because attachment is a theory that was first created by Bowlby and Ainsworth about 50 years ago, and there's been lots of thinking and further research about it. But essentially, it's trying to explain that our first 5 years experience of relationships forms a template for all other relationships after that. And that template is subconscious. It's a subconscious schema or a subconscious internal working model or a subconscious template of how we view every other relationship or possible relationship. So if we've spent the first 5 years surrounded by adults who are anxious and stressed, we will assume subconsciously that all adults are stressed and anxious, and we would have soaked that into our nervous system. So we become hypervigilant to all tiny possible indicators of stress in other people, and we will react to that as that feels familiar. And so there's an element of it being comforting, but yet somehow that causes me as the child to feel further anxious. Children soak up the environment. If it's highly rigid and controlling in their first 5 years, the child will either feel very comfortable with the familiarity of that, but also at the same time, they might actually struggle with things that are more flexible or more organic. We need to recognize that when a child has experienced volatility within their relationships, their key attachment relationships, so usually the first two primary caregivers, which could be a mum and a dad, or it could be a carer, it could be a granny, it could be all sorts of people, but the two primary caregivers are the primary attachment relationships. And they are the people that have the power to shape the internal subconscious template for all other relationships. So if the child experienced lots of volatility, there was lots of fighting, there was lots of constant change in the environment, then the child might well grow up feeling quite familiar with that. So their cognitive might say, I never want to be anywhere near that kind of level of volatility. I don't want a home life that looks like that. But their subconscious feels familiar with that volatility. It feels familiar with the chaos. It feels familiar with the potential threat. And so they're drawn to people that actually they don't want to be drawn to really, but their subconscious feels familiar. When children grow up with not consistent enough emotional connection, parenting, looking after children is not just about toys and clothes and food and school. It's so much about the child feeling safe with the primary caregivers who actually offer consistent, repetitive, predictable emotional connection, which shows on their face, it shows on their tone of voice, it leads to laughter and giggling and that sense of connection where the child feels known and cared for and loved and accepted. That helps a child's identity begin to feel established. It enables a child to feel safe in the presence of their caregiver, which slowly over time they begin to feel like they can explore the world from the safety of leaving, but being able to come back, leaving, but being able to come back. But if actually they feel safer at school than they do at home, because home is chaotic or home is anxious or home is some other kind of thing, then actually they might find their primary attachment is to school. If their primary attachment is to school, then home is less safe. And home is less safe means that they might cling on to their adults. They might cling on for fear that their adults will disappear forever because they feel like their adults aren't strong enough. And so they feel anxious about their adults. They feel protective over their adults. Sometimes school phobia is due to that. Sometimes school phobia is due to not feeling safe at school. Sometimes it's due to not feeling safe at home. Sometimes it's not feeling safe in either place. Attachment principles are so fundamental that we understand, and that we can intentionally build up that strength of relationship expectation in the subconscious of children, that they expect adults to be caring, to be repetitive, consistent, predictable, nurturing, emotionally available, strong people that look after them. When a child experiences that consistently, particularly for the first 5 years, it offers the child such a solid foundation for all other relationships going forward, and enables them to far easier recover from trauma in a far easier way, rather than kind of find it life altering, because that safe base in their primary caregiver enables them to feel safe internally. I hope that was a helpful, very short whistle-top tour of attachment theory linked to trauma.